in a relationship or a friendship with your ex after the split, you were angry with them. Like, your expectation is that they have to stay angry with your ex as long as you do. And it has to be as deep as your anger or your sadness or your frustration or whatever it is. And so your expectation is they have to feel about your ex the same way you feel about your ex. If that is part of your scenario, part of your reality, then your expectations of your friends could be out of alignment.
This is the Joy Act, where finding joy beyond divorce begins with your understanding that the depth of your heartache shows the depth of your capacity for joy. I'm Dr. Lisa Summerour, and together we'll use accountability, alignment, communication, and trust to transform your journey. It's time to step into the Joy Act.
Breakups don't just take a toll on the romantic relationship. Sometimes there is friendly fire from the breakup. Sometimes it's like collateral damage that happens, and it takes a toll on some of the friendships. So what is it that allows some friendships to last and survive the breakup and other ones to dissolve like melted ice? That's what I'm going to be talking about in today's episode. Friendly fire, how we can sometimes lose friendships as a result of ending a relationship. I'm Dr. Lisa Summerour, your accredited breakup and divorce coach, and I want you to live and become proof that joy can happen beyond the divorce. I want to talk about why some friendships change after the breakup, and what are some things you can do so that you can deal with that effectively, and how do you rebuild or reframe relationships after the breakup. I'm excited to share that this episode of the Joy Act is being brought to you by my Masterclass, 4 Essential Steps to Creating Joy After a Difficult Divorce. So if you are ready to take the next step into overcoming heartache, rebuilding your confidence, and living with joy after your breakup or your divorce, please go to the link in the message below. You'll learn critical steps to creating joy and overcoming the emotional weight of the breakup. Register for my masterclass today and get started. Now, today, what happens when we lose a friendship after a breakup or as a result of a breakup? There are a couple of reasons that this can happen, and I'm going to talk about it first from the side of the friends, and then I'm going to switch over and talk to what you might be doing. But from the friendship side, sometimes the foundation of the friendship is built on your ex's relationship with them. So it might have been a couple dynamic that was involved. And so maybe the reason you were hanging out with them is because they were friends with your ex before you met them. And so you came into that relationship, and the 4 of you, the dynamics of the relationship was really based on the fact that you were 2 couples who hung out. And now that you're no longer a couple, that's just dissolved and they have gone on their way, and maybe they are or aren't still hanging out with your ex, who knows? But that's one thing that can happen. The other thing, and this is a little similar, is that you inherited a friend because of your ex. They really were, or one of those people was really good friends with your ex, and they became friends with you solely because of the relationship they had with your ex. And when that happens, very often when the relationship ends, they have an allegiance to your ex, and they're just honoring that relationship. That's the relationship that was there. It's lasting. That might have been their ride and die, and they're going to ride and die with them. And so you may lose that friendship because of that. The third one is what I would call a social circle split. You and your ex were part of the same social group, and whether you did things together or met up and hung out, and now that you're not together as a couple anymore, it just doesn't even feel right to still be part of that group. It could be a little awkward, or people are just assuming that it's something you're no longer interested in. So those are a couple of things. Actually, those are all examples when the friendship was actually built on a foundation that involved your ex. Some other reasons that the friendships don't last is that people do take sides, not just because they were best friends with your ex before, but some people really do take sides. It could be in some instances just human nature. It could be based on the information or misinformation they received. It almost doesn't matter. It's good for you to realize that that's what's going on so that you can figure out how to deal with it emotionally. But you probably aren't going to change somebody's mind if that's what has happened, especially early on after the breakup. Another thing that happens for people is some friends really struggle with the discomfort of the breakup. They don't know what to do, and so they don't do anything. They don't call, they don't text, they don't invite you over, they don't check on you, and it could leave you feeling some kind of way. You may feel abandoned as a result of that, and hopefully you can get to the point where you're able to have a conversation. I'll talk about that a little later. At the same time, this is one of those reasons. Some people are just very, very uncomfortable. They may be sad. It may feel like a loss to them as well, that your relationship is over, and that for them to even pick one of you or the other, or they don't know what to do. So they don't do anything. Others see divorce as something they might catch. They look at it as something that's actually contagious. And they're not going to have that single person hanging around them. So you're just not going to be invited to couples things anymore. And this may really throw you for a loop, because you could start feeling a little insulted. Like, do they really think I want their husbands after all of the stuff they've shared with me? But we have to be really honest and truthful about the fact that is something that happens for people. And if you're in a group with other women going through this, if you're able to talk to other people who have gone through this, men and women, this is not exclusive for either side of the gender aisle. Anybody can experience this, where they just don't want that single person in this group of couples. And you may have even heard married people say, or a married person say, married people shouldn't hang out with singles. So married men should not hang out with single men. Married women should not hang out with single women. That's a whole nother episode, but this is along those same lines. Once you are no longer a couple, there may be other couples that are not interested in having you around, because it just feels odd for them to have this single person in their midst. What are some common experiences that are coming from your side? If you're the one who's just going through the breakup, what are some things that may be more about you than the friends? Ghosting or avoiding mutual friends of your ex. If you are experiencing this right now, there are some questions you can start asking yourself about why this is happening. But if you're ghosting people, and it just may be that you're really uncomfortable, you don't know if you're going to feel welcomed going to those social events without your ex. You don't know how people are going to receive you. And so instead of finding out, you just stop showing up. You just kind of ghost everybody. Maybe you're going through one of those emotional stages where you feel depressed right now, and because of your depression, you don't want to be around people. But it really depends on how long has this been going on? How long are you letting this happen? And do you have any intention of stopping it at some point? Or is this where you really feel comfortable right now because you are concerned or apprehensive about trying to maintain those relationships because you don't know what it's going to look like moving forward? You may also be feeling betrayed. So if someone you thought was a very good friend or a confidant has sided with your ex, or you feel like they have sided with your ex because they've maintained relationship with them, you may be feeling some sort of way, and you have just decided to X that person out right now. You just are not going to deal with them at all because you're upset with them as well too. If you have friends or family who may be supportive, like they may have been supporting you as you've gotten through this, and now you're at a place where you feel like you're getting a lot of unsolicited advice from them and a lot of judgment. And you're going to know this because you're just going to feel a certain kind of way when you start communicating with them. Like, you know what, I am already beating myself up enough, or I'm already past beating myself up and I'm trying to move into a different phase. And this person wants to keep coming at me with, my dad used to call these the woulda, coulda, shouldas, what you woulda, coulda, or should have done. And most of the time when somebody else is coming at you with woulda, shoulda, couldas, it's not helpful. So you may be shielding yourself from that by avoiding certain people because of the unsolicited advice and the judgment that's coming your way. And that's perfectly your call to make. Then you have some people who are not acknowledging the pain that you're in. They just want you to move on, get past it, push through it, get over it. However it is that they come at you trying to explain and justify why you need to not feel what you're feeling. And when you are in the middle of the pain, of the anguish, of the confusion, whatever your mental state is, and whatever the emotional state is that is associated or connected with that, when you're in the middle of that and somebody is trying to rush you through it, it's a really uncomfortable feeling. You may find yourself avoiding them as well. So there are things that are happening from your friend's side, and then there are things that it could be you. So the next thing I want to talk about, just your accountability in this, because I'm going to talk about accountability because I got to get through ACT, A.A.C.T. So I want to start this off with you thinking about, what can I take responsibility for? What's the self-reflection that you can do? And one of the things you can ask yourself is, were these relationships conditional? Were they genuine friendships, or were they conditional? Because if the relationship was conditional, if it was only based on you being with your ex and you're no longer with your ex, yeah, there may be things about that relationship that you're going to miss. And you got to be really clear with, but the only reason I even knew that person was because of my ex. And we apparently didn't develop a deep enough or genuine enough relationship between the two of us for it to survive the breakup. So it's basically like it went back to the way it was. And as difficult as that may be, you having a real honest conversation with yourself will help. It's like, well, what have I actually lost if I hadn't really developed that kind of relationship with them anyway? It's almost like we just want to have the numbers, and it may not even be substance behind it, but we want to have the numbers. It's like you want to have all the likes on Facebook. You want to have all those friends. You want to see the friendship numbers going up. And these people aren't even acquaintances, let alone friends, but we just like to see the numbers. We'd like to be able to feel like we have thousands of friends. And so this is sort of connected to that. We don't like losing a friend. We don't like losing. I'm saying that, and I want you to really be honest with yourself and say, what have I actually lost? And perhaps what you've actually done is made room for another relationship to develop. Or how about this? That person not being there anymore gives you more space for you. More space for you. And it doesn't say anything bad about the individual. It doesn't even say anything bad about the relationship. It just helps you frame it in a more realistic, honest way. If you think about that relationship and the only way you really see that relationship is through the lens of you being with your ex, then that relationship was there for that purpose, and it served that purpose. It did that thing, and that thing is now over. And again, you ask yourself, so what am I letting go of when I let go of this? How is that really going to impact me? Be placing unfair or unrealistic expectations on some of your friends. And what that might look like is, do you have any friends that if they stay in a relationship or a friendship with your ex after the split, you were angry with them? Like, your expectation is that they have to stay angry with your ex as long as you do. And it has to be as deep as your anger or your sadness or your frustration or whatever it is. And so your expectation is they have to feel about your ex the same way you feel about your ex. If that is part of your scenario, part of your reality, then your expectations of your friends could be out of alignment. It could be expecting them to know all the right things to do or say now that you've broken up. Like, they're supposed to magically know the things that you need without you saying anything. It might be the biggest thing happening in your life right now, and it may be the biggest thing that they're dealing with in terms of being your friends, knowing that you're going through this, but that doesn't mean that their lives have stopped. That doesn't mean that their day at work might not have been difficult. It doesn't mean that they may not still need you as a friend. And if you're not able to give that right now, it's good for you to be able to have that conversation and go, you know what, I know right now you need me to listen, but I got to tell you, I can't even focus on anything but what's going on with this divorce process or with this split up. And you can be honest, because a lot of these things are going to be temporary. But if you realize that you are putting expectations on other people that are just unrealistic, people are not going to be able to live up to that expectation, and they shouldn't be asked to, then this is another opportunity for you to take a look in the mirror and figure out what you need to do to discontinue that before you really do harm a friendship that could last this breakup. Now, this one is something you've probably heard. People come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And maybe that friendship has run its course. Maybe that friendship, that person in your life, they came and everything that they were supposed to do with you, for you, because of you, those things have happened. And it's time for the two of you to move in different directions on your journey. And so again, it's you being able to say to yourself, what am I letting go of to let go of this relationship? Because even with that being the case, even if you decide there was a reason or a season, it's not a lifetime friendship. It's a reason, it came for a reason, or it was for a certain period of time in my life. And in this case, the period of time was the length of that relationship that you were in, and now it's over. There's nothing to say that down the road, things might not change. There's nothing to say that one of you may make a call out of the blue months from now, years from now, just to go, you know what, I was thinking about you and I just decided, what the heck, I'm going to pick the phone up. And that might rekindle that friendship, and it could blossom into something that does last for the rest of your life. Who knows? It's really more important that you deal with what's happening now so that you're processing this stuff honestly for yourself. Let's evaluate who is actually there for you right now. You've gone through this thing where whether it's their choice or your choice, you realize there are some relationships that might not last. They may not be with you through this period, but let's talk about who is here. These are the people who are in alignment with who you are and what you need in your life right now, and vice versa. So who were your true friends, and which of those relationships were, like I said before, conditional or situational? So I would say, get a piece of paper and write this stuff down. I'm doing a program right now. Actually, I have a coach as well. I think every coach should have a coach. You have a coach who no longer has a coach and hasn't had one for a long time and has no intention of ever having one. You need to question that, right? And so Rachel Rodgers is somebody that I listen to and work with. And she talked about having a client who you're talking about, who are the people in your circle, who are the people you surround yourself with. And she said one of her clients was like, no, I don't have anybody in my life that I need to not be dealing with because they're not supportive or they're not this. And she says, really, because most of my clients have somebody like that. They kind of need to clean house when it comes to their friends. And the person said, no, because I do an evaluation or a friendship assessment like every year at the end of the year. And she was like, that's genius. And this may sound harsh to you. It may sound callous or cold. However, think about it. How many people are on your Facebook page or your profile, your personal profile, that you really aren't friends with? You don't have a relationship with these people other than the fact that they might post a joke on your Facebook. And periodically, you know, if you get to a point where you have, I think the number is 5,000 people, you're going to have to get rid of some folks anyway. What you will have to do if you get to that point is you will have to go through your friends list and start deleting friends to make room, because you will max out. And you do that because you just met a couple of people that you really do want to have on your profile as friends. And now you have to make room. And so don't judge me on this thinking that's really cold, that's really heartless. No, it's realistic. It's you really being intentional about the people in your life and the people that you surround yourself with and the people you give your time and your energy to. So that's what that is. And so who are your friends, who are true friends, and who are just situational? I talked about the friends who have distanced themselves from you as a result of the relationship ending. How do you determine why that has happened? Do you really know? Do you care? Because if you don't care, then you don't really have to do anything. You've already done what I just talked about, was basically you've weeded people out because you just don't care enough. So it's not going to matter to you one way or another. But if you do care, how do you determine what that distance is about? Another thing to think about is understanding the difference between losing a friendship and outgrowing a friendship. Losing a friendship versus outgrowing a friendship. And what does that mean, and what does that look like? Losing a friend is somebody just falling by the wayside. You may or may not know why that happened. Outgrowing a friendship could be you've just gone through this breakup and you are going through the healing process, and you realize that you have somebody in your life who is stuck in your past. Their past is so connected to your past that they want to keep you stuck in your past that you have already outgrown. Or you realize that you really are moving yourself into a different phase of your life, and everybody might not be ready to come with you. It's almost like you want to do international traveling and you have a friend with no passport. They can't come. It's not a matter of whether they want to or not. They don't have what they need to be able to make that trip with you. And the reality is there are some people in our lives, we get to a certain point in our life that we do have certain expectations of how our friends and acquaintances show up. And when somebody cannot or will not respect your boundaries, I'll use that, they won't respect those boundaries, you have to let them go because you've outgrown, you're not even letting them go. You're just moving on, and they're not coming for the ride. They're not coming along with you. They're not moving. They're staying in your past, their past. They're just staying in the past. What do you do when you have asked yourself the question, what actually did happen with this relationship? And you realize you've been making some broad-based assumptions, right? You thought initially that they cut you off. They are friends with your ex. They don't want to have anything to do with you. You're uncomfortable, but it's their fault because they're not calling you. Whatever the reasons were that you have been giving yourself. And now you're having a moment where you're like, I don't know if any of that is true. Why do I believe that? Like I haven't tested any of these theories, these thoughts that have been popping into my head. I've just thought them up and believed them. And so what is it that you can do? I've talked about you being accountable. We just talked about alignment. Like who is still in alignment with you, who should still be in your circle. And now to get into this next phase, it really is about the communication aspect. Because in order for you to find the answers to that question or some of these questions, you need to be willing to communicate with some of these folks. And it's really picking up the phone or sending them a text and saying, hey, you know what? I've noticed there's been some distance between the two of us since I broke up with my ex. I'd really love to talk to you about that. Now, does this take a little bravery? Yeah, maybe. You got to be a little vulnerable to do that? Probably. Especially if you have been for weeks or months or longer telling yourself this person doesn't want to deal with you. To make this move, it's a pretty bold move. I will tell you this, as uncomfortable as it might be to do it, you're going to feel so much better after you do it because there's no wrong response to your inquiry. There's no wrong response. So don't think of it as good or bad or right or wrong. The information you get is going to be exactly the information you needed because what are the actual options? You make a phone call like that or send a text message like that. They are either going to want to have the conversation or they're not going to want to have the conversation. Now, if they don't want to have the conversation, that is your answer. Now, it's up to you if you want to try to beat that dead horse and go deeper and find out why. It depends on how valuable you think that relationship is if you want to take that next step. If it's just, you know what, that's all the clarity that I needed. I had a feeling that might have been where it was. They really weren't interested in communicating with me or maintaining a relationship, and now I know. So if it's that, you can take their phone number out of your phone and unfriend them on Facebook and or do whatever or not and move on. But if they agree to have the conversation face-to-face or on the phone or Zoom or however you decide to do it, again, what are the options? You could have the conversation and still hear, you know, I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I just wanted us to get closure together, or I wanted to just say what I wanted to say to you. And they may tell you that they have sided with your ex and what you did was horrible and you don't know what it could be, but maybe it's going to be things you didn't want to hear. And I'm going to say to you, even if that's the case, it's exactly what you needed to hear. Because after that conversation, again, you will not be confused about where that relationship stands. Now, the other option is the two of you have a conversation and realize, no, there is enough of a friendship here. There was a bond that we had. There was something. It doesn't matter how we met each other. I want to maintain a relationship with you because I just think you're cool people. And I have had this happen. I have had the experience where I wouldn't have met this person had it not been for my relationship with my ex. And when the relationship ended, I would have liked to maybe stayed in touch with some of those people, but some of them, it just didn't happen. And quite frankly, I don't lose any sleep over it. I doubt that they're laying in bed losing sleep over me. So we both understood that's what it was. And I have also had those relationships that have outlived my relationship by a long shot. Actually, I have several of those. We joke that the reason that I was in the relationship was so I could meet them and we could bond and form a friendship. This has happened with individuals and it's happened with couples where I was dating somebody and I can remember, I can tell you now, it's been about 22 years. And the reason I know is because I was dating a coworker of his father's. And he said to me, hey, do you want to go with me? My friend's son is they're having his son's first birthday party. And I was like, sure. And at the time I was doing Creative Memories and I took her a white leather Creative Memories baby book, a photo book, scrapbook. And she opened the box and knew immediately what it was when she saw the box before she even took the lid off. She recognized that it was Creative Memories. She was so excited. We have been good friends ever since then. And in 2 months, I will be flying into Colorado to go to her son's college graduation. And so that was one of those relationships. So there is no good or bad or right or wrong. The question is, do you want to find out? Do you want to invest the energy in finding out? And I say in some cases, do it. One, it's a really good way for you to feel good about taking that step and asking the difficult question, having the challenging or maybe uncomfortable conversation, because what you are going to get from that is going to be truth and honesty and clarity. And if everything goes, depending on how it goes, you could end up with a relationship that comes out of it that you can be sure about, not because you're just willy-nilly, but because you actually had a real conversation with this person. So the communication can be huge. You also, with the relationships that you have maintained that came through the friendship, you do want to set healthy boundaries. So when I talked about the friends who are being judgmental, they are giving unsolicited advice, that is your responsibility to make sure that you are setting clear boundaries with people so you can say things to them like, you know, I am at a point in my life right now where I have worked through certain things and I don't want to go back to that. I don't need to relive it. I've already worked through it. So I would appreciate it if we didn't have these conversations. Or you might have that friend who always wants to give you the update on what your ex is up to. Guess who I saw? Guess who he was with? Guess where she was? Guess what she was wearing? Whatever it is. And you can say to them, you know what? Can we not talk about them when we're together? Like, we've got so many other things in common. That is not something that I want to sit with you and chat about. If it comes up, if something happens and that changes, I'll let you know. But for now, can we do that? And your good friends should be able to honor that. If you're hearing things like shoulda, woulda, coulda, you should be able to handle me talking to you about him if you were over him. Well, if it was me, I wouldn't have a problem hearing you blah, 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 blah. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Now, knowing when to let go versus when to clarify a misunderstanding. You've said what you needed to say. You've set a boundary. And you got this friend who does not want to honor the boundary. It is now time for you to make a decision. Do I continue to repeat myself to try to clarify why this is important to me? Have I done it enough where now it's just time to move on? Like, now this is a friendship that I need to end intentionally because I am not going to continue to have to explain myself. Now it's turned into, you're just not respecting my boundaries. And that's my fault if I don't do anything about it. You've already demonstrated that you're not going to honor it. And if I let that slide, that's now on me, not on you. So this is a situation where you have taken the accountability. You've looked to see who you're still in alignment with. You've decided which of these relationships are worth pursuing enough to at least ask the question and find out one way or the other. So you've had those conversations, you've communicated what you need to communicate, right? And now you get to rebuild your social circles, which is also going to help you start trusting yourself. Because when you rebuild your social circle from a place of alignment and accountability, you're communicating to people differently. And they're seeing you in a light where you're going to attract individuals who are looking for some of the same things that you're looking for, and the relationship will be reciprocal. So trusting yourself to be able to make those new friendships and build new connections is a wonderful experience to have. And because of some of these conversations you've already had and the experiences you just went through, you can trust yourself to do these things because you've already gone through a weeding out process with people that were in your life before. And what I mean by that is, if you meet somebody new and a couple of conversations in, a couple of outings, you realize, yeah, this person is not sitting well with me. They just don't fit right. You have already lost relationships as friendly fire from your divorce. Losing a new acquaintance at this point is probably not even deep enough to be a friendship. Letting go or moving beyond a new acquaintance because you already know in your gut, this isn't feeling right for me, that is where you want to be, because that is a sign that you're trusting your own inner wisdom or intuition or whatever you want to call it, right? You're trusting in that. And that's where you want to get to. And you want to be able to lean into the community that you have already started creating for yourself. And when you start bringing new people into that community, you get to see, how do they fit? How do the puzzle pieces of your life and these other relationships, how do they mix and mingle together? You may have a professional networking experience that you're able to go to. You may have something in your neighborhood that is neighborhood based. You may be a part of something like one of my groups where it's a group for women who have gone through a divorce. You may be in a program that just caters to that particular group, and you will find that each one of those communities offers you something different, and you will also find that you contribute something slightly different in each one of those communities. And again, this is a growth opportunity. This is an opportunity for you to kind of breathe into your new life, and that is going to allow you to start trusting yourself in new ways. And learning to trust other people is only going to happen because you have learned to start trusting yourself. And you're no longer anxious about not being able to handle things. Because when you look back over just what I've talked about here, when you look back at the relationship ending, at the friendships that you may have lost as a result, and the ones that you've been able to maintain, and the ones that you've been able to salvage, right? When you look at all of that, you're going to realize that there was a lot more in you than you probably thought. And so trusting yourself is going to be a natural extension of that, because you're going to realize, wait a minute, I can handle a lot more things than I thought I could. I'm more prepared to deal with things, even things that don't work out, things that don't land the way I thought they were going to land. I'm still here standing to deal with other stuff and to talk about it. So I can handle some of these other friendships or relationships, these new relationships. I can handle saying yes or no to them. Some of the relationships are going to strengthen you, and some of them are not going to, they're not going to make it to the end. So as I wrap this up, and I do want you to put in the comments, I want you to post what has resonated for you today, and which of the experiences that I've described have you been through yourself, and what was that like for you, and how, if you can share, how did it end up? How did it come out for you? Some of your friendships are going to fade. And I've talked about the different reasons that they might not last. But those are the ones that maybe they were there for just a reason or a season. And when that time ends, it just fades. It just goes away. And you're going to have to process that and be forgiving of yourself and the other person. You may find yourself building up animosity or frustration or even anger because you can't believe that's all it was, that friendship. They let the friendship go. Be accountable to what you can own in terms of that relationship ending. And when you realize, I kind of let it go too, and then be okay with that if that's what you did. Because if you're not okay with it, time to pick the phone up. Now, I'm going to say true friendships will stand the test of time and the transformation. I almost hesitate to say that. I don't know that the other friendships weren't true for the period of time that they existed and for what they were there to do. So they may have been true for that period of time, but lasting friends, those friends that are going to be with you for a lifetime, those are the ones that can withstand the transitions. And they will be there and they will let you know who they are. And I have friends like that in my life that I've known. My oldest friend goes back to kindergarten. We don't talk often, and it's almost like the friendship is so solid that we don't need to. At the same time, she knows if she calls me, I'm likely going to be there, even if it's just to be on the phone. And we keep each other abreast of what's going on in our families, with our moms, with her children. And so those friendships are likely to be the ones that you may not really need to have these difficult conversations with, because those are the folks that you just know they ain't going nowhere. Also know that you are not alone. You're not alone, and you are fully capable of now making new, meaningful connections in your life. You're capable of doing that. And some of it is what we just talked through. So if you need to, go back and watch this episode again and take some notes so that you can ask the questions that you need to ask to the people you feel you need to ask them, right? And when you do that, you're going to get the right answer every time. And just tell yourself that whatever their answer is, whatever the outcome of this conversation is, it is the absolute right answer. You don't need to fight with somebody to make them be your friend. Forcing a friendship is not a friendship. I think it's more like a kidnapping. I also want to take a moment here and once again just remind you that this episode is brought to you by my Masterclass, 4 Essential Steps to Creating Joy After a Difficult Divorce. And if you have recently gone through a breakup or a divorce and you are struggling with what you need to do to move yourself forward, you know there's a place that you want to be. You just don't know how to get there. You don't know what steps to take next. You don't have the support. You don't have a guide. I want you to know that this masterclass could be the first step in you moving in the direction that you most want to go. And I'm here to help you. So use the link, or you can go to Dr.Lisa, that's L-I-F-E. So Dr-Lisa.LIFE/joy beyond divorce. Or look for the link in this post. But just in case you are listening on a streaming podcast and you're only hearing this and not able to see it, that's the link, Dr.Lisa.life/joy beyond divorce. And I am so excited about this program and the bonuses in it. You can also get more information from my book, Divorce is Not a Destination: A Path to Overcoming Heartache, Rebuilding Confidence, and Living with Joy After Breakup. Dr. Lisa here. Thank you for being with me for this episode. And until next time, act in joy.